The International Monetary Fund is predicting the fastest global economic expansion since 2011. It says the world economy will grow 3.9% this year and next year, but things don't look as good in 2020 and beyond. The IMF warns trade wars could derail the world's economic engine, and it says policymakers need to seize this period of stability to strengthen their economies. Now, in its World Economic Outlook, the IMF lifted its forecast for US growth by 0.2 of a percentage point. It's now predicting 2.9% growth this year and 2.7% in 2019. The IMF says the US economy will enjoy a boost through 2020 from tax cuts, but their effects would start to wear off after that. The IMF kept its forecast unchanged for China at 6.6%, down from 6.9% growth last year. China is trying to achieve a transition to slower but steadier growth built on consumer spending. The lending agency upgraded its forecast for the 19-country Eurozone to 2.4% this year, up from the 2.2% it predicted 3 months ago. It says demand has increased for Eurozone exports. Now, the IMF and World Bank are also hosting their annual spring meetings of economists and policymakers this week. Kate Fisher is covering those meetings in Washington, D.C. and joins us now. So, Kate, the IMF saying that policymakers need to prepare for potential economic storms ahead. Is this likely to be the main theme, then, of this year's spring meetings?
Yes, absolutely. Despite all those celebrations, if you like, as you say, of that positive outlook for this year and next of growth of 3.9%, Christine Lagarde of the IMF using lots of weather metaphors to warn economists and financial leaders that they need to try to make economic reforms while the sun is still shining. She's warning of darker clouds looming on the horizon if they don't do that. So yes, the focus very definitely this year on how to make the most of this positive outlook to prepare for darker times ahead.
Yes, indeed. Now, Madame Lagarde last week did actually say that the global trade system risks being torn apart because of the rise of protectionism. What can the IMF and World Bank do realistically, if anything, to try and avert such a trade war?
Certainly, there is real concern from them about this rise of protectionism and this trade spat between the US and China. Very unusually for the IMF, the chief economist, Maurice Obstfeld, in his press conference revealing the World Economic Outlook this morning here in Washington, actually talked about the US and warned about their behaviour. That's unusual for the IMF to kind of single out criticism for its essentially its biggest shareholder. The US gives the most money to them, yet they still criticised their behaviour because they are so concerned about what this protectionist stance could mean for the global economy. I think what can they do? Well, they can try to give policymakers an idea of the consequences of what it will mean and also discuss potential remedies for it. They're urging the US and China not to go as far as a full-blown trade war, and they're urging them to use multilateral discussions to try to solve this without going towards that full-blown trade war.
Okay, we're almost out of time, but could the meetings act as a forum for China and the US to sit down and talk?
Certainly, I think that is what kind of lower-level delegates and economists, rather than the administration level, are hoping for. They will be openly holding dialogues. They'll all be there in these sessions, and they will be trying to, the IMF will be hoping that they have listened to that warning and that they will be trying to hold these multilateral discussions. And certainly, I think at that level of delegate, they are keen to avoid this kind of trade war. They want to bring back their leaders from the brink, if you want, and they will be working as much as they can to try to find some common grounds.
Kate Fisher in Washington, D.C., thank you so much.